In this video, we'll understand broadly what diabetes is, an internationally accepted classification of diabetes, pre-diabetes, and non-diabetes. We'll briefly discuss about glucose, which is the source of energy for all physiological processes in the human body. When we consume any carbohydrate, it gets broken down into glucose by various digestion processes in the human digestive system. Glucose generated in this process makes it to the bloodstream in the small intestines. Once blood glucose is detected, the brain signals pancreas to release insulin. As shown schematically in this slide, insulin is like a key which allows transport of glucose to the cells. In actuality, it involves various complex steps, including conversion of glucose to ATP and Krebs cycle, which refers to the process of release of energy from carbohydrates. We won't get into these details, but for now, it is enough to understand that glucose needs to get into the cells to provide energy to all cellular processes. This mechanism of glucose transport requires insulin. This process of glucose transport can run into two problems with diabetics. As shown in the schematic, in type 1 diabetics, beta cells which generate the insulin could be destroyed by one's own body. These type of individuals are called type 1 diabetics. Type 1 diabetics need extra source of insulin to get on with their lives. In type 2 diabetics, there is either not adequate insulin or the insulin being secreted by pancreas is not effective due to cellular fat deposits, and thereby insulin secreted has a resistance to aid in the glucose transport. Then there is gestational diabetes, which is related to development of type 2 diabetes among pregnant women. This normally tends to get reversed postpartum. Typically, about 10% of the diabetics in the world are type 1 diabetics and the rest are type 2 diabetics. The classification of diabetes by WHO and American Diabetes Association are shown in this slide. There are 4 criteria for classifying someone as a type 2 diabetic by WHO and ADO. They are as follows, as you can see. A fasting blood glucose level of greater than 125 is classified diabetic. Postprandial blood glucose, that is glucose after consuming 75 grams of glucose, is over 200 milligrams per deciliter. Glycated hemoglobin or HbA1c is greater than 6.5, or random blood glucose is greater than 200 milligrams per deciliter. Among the 4 classification criteria, HbA1c is typically used most extensively, as this is the most useful metric since it is indicative of 3-month blood glucose control. There is difference in pre-diabetic criteria between WHO and ADA. Per WHO, pre-diabetics are those individuals whose fasting blood glucose is between 110 to 125 milligrams per deciliter, whereas ADA classifies a narrower range of 100 to 125 milligrams per deciliter. Thank you.